join us one of these days, but he does not want to do anything today at all. He's spending the day with his family. He will not be doing anything today. We've been in touch with his agent, and he will not be doing anything today. So that's we were working with, obviously trying to get him to come to the talk today about it, but he said he didn't want to. He will be joining us, and to talk about it one of these days, but not yet. He doesn't want to do it yet. And listen, when it's final, I don't think this came as any surprise to him. Clearly, there were indications. If you listen to him talk during the playoffs, that's all you needed was an indication. But still, he's he chose not to speak today. So, which is obviously his prerogative. George in New Milford, what's up, George?
Hey, Mike, how are you today?
Good, what's up?
I know it's hot off the presses. It's a sad day in Yankee land, for me anyways, with the let go of Girardi. What do you think of Tony Pena and the possibility of?
I don't think Tony Pena gets. I don't think he gets the job. I think they want someone who is going to be much more geared to the new baseball, to the analytics. That's where they're going. That's what this was about. That was what the rift that we were hearing about really dealt with more than anything else. That's what they want. They want to be able to. They want a much bigger hand. What you'll hear is them talk about a partnership, which means we don't want the manager to manage the team by himself. We want to have we want input into managing the team, and that's what these teams want now. They want input into They want input into the lineup. They want input into the philosophy. They want input into everything, and that's where the days of the manager having being the guy, like with a Socha or a Buck Showalter or guys like that, those are going to be few and far between. That's just the way it is, and that's where baseball is going. And when the Yankees talk about getting someone younger, more modern, someone who thinks along those lines, that's what they're saying. They want someone who's going to be happy to have the job, and someone who they can mold, who manages, gets along with the players, and that's really going to be his prime. See, his prime deal is going to be managing the game within reason, with the bench coach, but with a philosophy, and taking care of the players. And that's the kind of guy they want now, managing the team. And that's where these teams have gone, and the Yankees are the same way. They've gone that way themselves. Casey and Bethpage, what's up, Casey?
Yeah, there's a very good manager out there, won 90 games 3 times and a World Series in the last 4 years. Go get John Farrell. I mean, this guy, 93 wins this year, 93 wins last year,
and
97 wins 4 years ago, and a World Series.
I doubt it very much, because I think he ran into the same thing in Boston that Girardi ran into with the Yankees.
If you're going to replace Girardi, you got to replace him with a guy who's won a World Series. This guy,
no, that's not true. I think the odds on them replacing him with a guy who won the World Series are virtually nil.
Well, that makes no sense. Why would you go get somebody who has World Series?
Maybe you didn't hear what I just said.
Yeah.
They don't want a manager who has gravitas. They want a manager they can mold. They want to
put Cashman in the manager job. Then it makes no.
But this is
what are we doing here?
Casey, welcome to baseball in 2017. This is how these franchises run now. They want to run them.
Is that the way this guy manages?
Everybody's running them that way. All the new guys, all these franchises are running their teams that way. All of them. All of them. And that's how they want them run. The general manager's got all the power now. All the power. And the front office, the analytics department, they want all that to be the focus of how they run their team. And they want the manager to go, quote unquote, partnership is what you'll hear. And your job is to, manage the game, make out the lineup card with us, handle the players, which is really your biggest concern, and work with us when we say, here's your lineup. This guy bats second, this guy bats third. Here's your rotation. Here's what we're doing. And that's what they're looking for. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for a guy who's won. They're not looking for a guy with gravitas. They're looking for someone to do that. That's what they want. Bob in Jersey, what's up, Bob?
Hey, Mike, thanks for taking the call.
What's happening?
Yeah, agree with you totally, Mike. No big surprise here that Girardi's out. My feeling on Cashman is I'd rather have Cashman than Girardi because he's done a magnificent job. But, Mike, think about the next Yankee manager. He's about to potentially at least go on a big run here. That's
got a chance.
Got to be.
Now he's going to also have pressure.
Yes.
There's pressure in New York, number one. And he's still got to be the face of the franchise. The one thing the Yankees have to deal with here is you still have to give them someone who can deal with the media, because you still have to do that. That's one thing you can't shield him from. He has to be able to handle that in this town and handle the pressures of the job in this town, and that's part of it. And it's hard to find that in a young guy who doesn't have a lot of experience. So,
that's true,
that's a tricky thing. No, that's it. But you're right, Bob. The guy's going to be moving into a very talented team. There's no question about it. The team is ready to win. We all know that the team is ready to go on a run, and there's going to be a lot of pressures. And so it'll be interesting to see where they go for a manager. I think they always have to take into account that they're the Yankees and that they are bringing in a guy who's going to have to deal with the media. And, you're still the Yankee manager. Mike in Verona, what's up, Mike?
Hey, Mike, it's a sad day. I actually, I really like Girardi. I feel like I'm kind of in the minority with that in terms of Yankee fans. But in terms of moving
fans
forward,
never like managers. That's just the way it is. I mean, listen, I used to get I got plenty of fans who didn't like Joe Torre. So it happens.
What do you think about this guy? He's a young guy.
I was going to be a jerk. I could tell him right away. I was going to disconnect him, but I said, let him go make his joke. Go ahead. Bob in Oakland, what's up, Bob?
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
What's happening?
If I was a Yankee fan, I would be embarrassed and ashamed today, because
why?
The way that they turned on him after that Cleveland game. I mean, if you cannot convince me that if that didn't happen, that this whole thing, that this guy would not be staying.
Listen,
there.
I can tell you. Listen, I can tell you. Listen, let me tell you. Let me just tell you, and I hope you believe it. This was in the works long before that.
Well, I can't see it.
Well,
you're telling me
you can believe it. It had nothing to do with that. Now, listen, they didn't support him because they weren't bringing him back. So, but I started hearing this in May. So this is not, the people around the team. It was not a big secret that I started hearing this from people around that team in May that there was an issue. So this was not a surprise that they weren't getting along. That that a thing had run its course, that he wasn't thrilled with how the thing was being run now, and there was always a rift between the department and the idea of who was going to make the decisions, and Girardi. This was not a secret this year. If you go back, I said this starting in July. I said this on the show about Girardi this year. I mean, I've been hearing it. We've been hearing this for months and months. This is not. I'm telling you, it's not the biggest secret in the world that there was some tension there this year. Now, I didn't know if they would make up or not make up, and the run in the playoffs would change things. This was not because. But when they didn't come out and support him, I mean, we all knew what that meant. All right, and they didn't come out and support him when he made a mistake, and they didn't. They hung him out to dry, which. And if you listen to Joe the last week, talking about how he was scanning the stadium and taking the last look, and that's basically what he was saying. I saw him doing it that day when our eyes met, when I was sitting there for Game 5. Sitting there for the last game in the Astro series, before they went to Houston for Game 6. And I saw him, and he kind of nodded, and I nodded at him, and he was soaking up. He was in the top step, and he was soaking up the entire place. He was looking down the right field line. He was looking down the left field line. He was looking through the stands, and he was just checking every section out. And that's how our eyes met, because he saw me sitting there, and I saw him, and I said, "Man, he looks like a guy who's maybe managing his last game in the building," and that's what he was thinking. He was thinking, I might not be up on this step again. And he was, and that was his last time he was in it. So it was, he sounded like that. Now, I didn't know which way it would go, because you never know how negotiations are going to go. Someone has a change of heart. Maybe the run changes. And maybe if they had made the World Series, they would have had a change of heart. Who knows? And maybe they wouldn't have. If they had won the World Series, you got to figure it would be hard to shake a change then, but who knows what would have happened? They might have stiffed him on the contract just to get rid of him. You don't know. They wanted to make a change. They felt it was time to make a change, and they want to go in a different philosophy. They have young players now, and they want to mold them in a certain way, and they want this new thought of baseball, this new way of doing things. They want to do it that way. And that's what they want, which is fine. Listen, I have no problem with that. When a guy's been in a place 10 years, and Joe Girardi's been in with the Yankees as a player and a manager for a very long time. So, the Yankees have every right to change their manager after 10 years. Every right. Chris in New Jersey. What's up, Chris?
Hey, Mike, I just wanted to get your opinion. I know he's got no managerial experience, but he's brilliant, got a good relationship with Hal. I know he's very busy, so I don't know if he'd consider it, but your thoughts on somebody like Alex Rodriguez?
I say no chance. I think he's way too wealthy. I think he has way too varied financial interests. I don't think he wants to be that involved where, from February, right through October, he is inundated every day, every minute. And I don't think he he's just got too much of everything. He's very wealthy. He's got a lot of varied financial business interests. A-Rod's done very well, as you would expect for a man who made almost $600 million on the field. He's in a different class. He's in a different place. He really is. He's an immensely wealthy athlete. Mike in Hartford. What's up, Mike?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for taking the call.
What's happening?
Hey, I've been talking to you for many years, listened to you even longer than that, and I guess I'm not shocked because I know you well enough to know that when you keep talking about something, you're not plucking it out of thin air, and I know you've got good sources, so I'm not surprised. But this just seems to me like it's a total power play on Cashman's part. Clearly, he's held in very high regard with what he's done the last 2 seasons.
What it is, Mike, it's a philosophy fight. You understand what I mean?
I do.
It's one philosophy that they want to have run the franchise versus another philosophy.
So here's the only thing I would say is that, I feel like when you take a team that was picked to win 82 games to 1 game from the World Series, at least in my opinion, you need to justify the change. This team is the equivalent of a Rolls Royce. Who out there is more worthy of holding the keys to the car than the guy who helped build it? And the only thing that you had mentioned that I do personally disagree with was I think in your open you had mentioned that it wasn't something for Yankee fans to be upset over. I personally am upset. I love Joe. I thought Joe was an excellent manager. Aside from Game 2 this year, I think that the criticism is so overdone.
Here's why I say that. I think Joe had been worn down this year. I think he'd been worn down by this. As a matter of fact, to me, he looked scary thin. And I think, I think he looked very worn down by the whole season. And
Mike, what do you make of? What's your opinion on? I've seen some stuff from some of the reporters today about the players being indifferent to Joe. I watch every.
A lot
game,
of the players, and I'm going to be honest with you here.
I never saw that.
All right, I'm going to be honest with you here. There's a good group of the players that don't like Joe.
Really?
Yes.
Now, is there anybody at any point who's going to put some names to that? Because that's shocking to me.
I'm not going to. Okay, but I'm going to tell you honestly. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm always going to tell you the truth. All right, there are a good group of players. There's more than a couple of players that weren't big Girardi fans.
Well, if those players aren't named Judge, Sanchez, Gregorius, Bird, Severino,
and I don't think any of them. I don't think any of them are the kids. I think one is. I think one is.
The idea.
I think there's one
that's probably Sanchez.
You got it because Joe was very hard on him. So
well, you know what?
Yes.
I mean, from my perspective, Joe was. Again, we don't see what goes on behind closed doors, but I thought Joe's always had Sanchez's back. And the performance at times from Sanchez, as you and I discussed,
and Joe had a lot. Listen, and you probably know that Joe had a lot of trouble with the Stars on the way down. He had a lot of trouble with. He and Posada hated each other,
which is why he won't be in Miami managing.
He had a lot of trouble with Jeter. He had let me say he had a little trouble with Jeter. He had a tremendous amount of trouble with Jorge. He had trouble with a lot of the big stars on the way down, handling them. But that's hard for anybody to do. And he's a little rigid, and I think that rubs some of the players the wrong way. Let's be honest. Chapman had some problems with him, which Chapman tried to back out of later, but Chapman had trouble with him. He did. So did every player love him? But listen, you never judge a manager by whether the players love him, because that doesn't matter. You're going to 25 men. They're never all going to love you. I don't care what 25 guys you put in a room. No one's going to get 25 out of 25. The old rule was you kept five. You kept the five that loved you away from the five that hated you, so that neither was able to poison the other, and the rest of them are indifferent anyway. So they're right down the middle. So that's always the way people thought about managing 25 guys. So listen, that's just the way it goes. That doesn't really matter that much. It doesn't. And I think this year was a little bit of a strain for him, number one. Although the season turned out really successfully, enormously successfully. And you can't even talk about the gaffe in Game 2 because they won that series. So, because that would have been something that everyone would have jumped on. But they won that series. So you can't, they got through that series with a great win again, and they crushed an Indian team that thought it was going to win the whole thing this year. Let's be honest. They devastated that Indian team. That Indian team thought it was winning the whole thing. That Indian team thought they were going to play the Dodgers in the World Series for a month. So, hey, he leaves on a high note. My point of his saying to Yankee fans that you don't be sad about this is a manager can run his course. Even a good manager can run his course. Pat Riley ran his course in L.A. I can give you chapter and verse of so many guys who ran their course, who had great runs, but ran their course with franchises they had. Tom Coughlin ran his course with the Giants. Had a great historic run with them. He ran his course with the Giants. There are many cases of that. So there's nothing wrong with that. He's going out, though, on the rarity of a high note, not a low note. He's not going out after a 82-win season or a playoff debacle. He's leaving on a high note, which is a nice way for him to leave. To be honest with you, if he wants to continue his career. Here's Eric.